P.S. You're welcome for.
Welcome for what? The Watson's Choice?
Yep.
I don't know. You know what? You know what our new thing is? We don't talk. That's our new thing.
He wants you to sing something.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Keeping you in contact.
Well, that is tight.
Ready? Are we ready to go? Okay. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tina, will you call roll, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Wayne Reeskamp.
Here.
Councillor Robert Fuller.
Here.
Councillor Rebecca Grizzle.
Here.
Councillor Floyd Fisher.
Here.
Councillor Jason Boland.
Here.
Councillor Bob Elliott.
Here.
Virginia Cloyd.
Here.
And Kim Offers.
Here.
Todd Gestrin.
Here.
You said that right.
All present.
Okay, thank you very much. First up, we have the election of the Budget Chair Committee. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Mr. Olfers.
Second. I nominate Rebecca Grizzle.
You can't do that. It's already been seconded.
We already have one on the table.
It's out of order.
Yes.
I call that out of order.
We can't have a runoff election. Yeah, can we have a runoff election
So,
here?
Can't you hear the train?
it's been nominated and
Yeah.
seconded.
Trains-
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
One opposition. We have our chair.
3 years in a row?
You did.
That's because you do a good job.
outstanding.
He just handed me this, Rebecca. I'd run.
I trust you.
Okay. Election of the Budget Committee Secretary. Do I have any motions?
I nominate Rebecca Grizzle.
Second. We have a nomination and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, that's done. First order of business is the approval of the FY 17-18 budget minutes. Do we have any discussion on that? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion? Yeah, I'm sorry.
My name throughout the minutes are spelled differently, and in one place I'm Tom, and the last week, so not that it matters a whole lot, but
Well, we should get that fixed.
We'll get that fixed. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
My turn to sign.
Yeah.
I don't know, is this one?
On page 10 of
Sure.
15, under Senior Services Trust, it
Red
says,
light needs to be on.
under questions or comments, Paul Aziz said he has been very impressed with the newsletters and asked if Rebecca Grizzle was responsible for that. And I asked Rebecca, and she said she is not. There is a Rebecca, but her last name is Wirfs, W-I-R-F-S. And she does an excellent job, and I wanted her to get credit for that. And Rebecca's not quite ready to join the senior center.
Careful.
Test,
Be
test,
very
test.
careful.
Your light's just not working.
Okay. Okay.
What page is that on?
10 of 15.
Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to pass the budget minutes from
I'd
20,
move.
As amended.
as amended?
As amended, yeah.
As amended?
Second that.
Okay, been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's complete. And now we have the presentation of the FY 17-18 budget by City Manager Gary Marks and Finance Manager Dean Baugh.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here today to present to you the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year. If you'll direct your attention to the screen. Just some overview, basics. There are two budgets, actually, that we will be reviewing this afternoon and perhaps approving. One of them is the fiscal 17-18 city budget, and I'll be showing you a budget overview for that and general fund analysis. And then the second budget is that for the Urban Renewal Agency. So, starting with the city budget, our proposed budget levels of service are maintained. Our contingencies and our reserves overall are up 16%, and our 14% general fund balance goal that was set by the City Council through our financial policies about a year and a half ago is met. Operating appropriations are up 4.3%, and I'll say right now, and we'll hit on this again later, a big chunk of that increase has to do with the PERS increase that we're receiving from the state of Oregon. Capital investment is up 5.5%, and our capital spending throughout the budget represents more than half the budget, 53%. That is because we are engaged now, as of the middle of this month, breaking ground on the new water treatment plant. In addition to that, we also have other capital projects beginning. One is the extension of Airport Road from about Safeway over to Russell Drive, improvements on Russell Drive, and the new Porter Park Community Garden. All of those things we anticipate to be at least underway this year. All of them, except for the water treatment plant, should be completed by the end of this calendar year. The proposed budget, as I mentioned, there is a 32% increase in our PERS obligation, which amounts to $300,000. And of course, that did, for a budget our size, that did create challenges for us. However, we had put ourselves in a strong enough situation that I think we're going to weather through this just fine, at least for this first round. 2 years from now, in the next biennium, we're expecting to see another increase, probably of this magnitude, and 2 years after that, another one. The state of Oregon got behind in its PERS obligations. Their amendment to try to fix that was overturned by the Supreme Court, so we are now obligated over the next 6 years to help make up the difference. This is our share in the first installment. Our overall staffing is increased by 2 FTE, inclusive of a new police officer and a staff electrician. The police officer, of course, is funded from the general fund. The electrician is funded from other funds outside of the general fund. And what we discovered as we were looking at the idea of an electrician is we currently put out so much for electrician services that it pretty much pays for itself to have our own in-house person that we can depend on. Management intends to review library staffing after the beginning of the fiscal year with hopes of increasing our operating hours. I was not comfortable putting that in the budget document now. I want to see for sure how our beginning fund balance comes in and how things settle out as we get into the new fiscal year. It is an action item for us to expand those hours and our offerings at the library as we can. And so between the library and the police, those are 2 items that are listed in our strategic action plan, and the police position, I might mention too, has become a city council goal. And in this budget, we've built in all six of the council goals. They're addressed in some way or another, and 7 action items from the community strategic plan, either in whole or in part. Some of those 7 strategic plan items are replication of the 6 council goals, but nonetheless, these areas are covered. And those council goals being downtown revitalization, We're funding the second phase of our downtown building restoration program. We are looking at putting together and bringing to the Urban Renewal Board this coming year the new downtown urban renewal district, which is really the backbone of many of the improvements that are in our strategic plan for downtown. And also, I believe you are going to hear from the Downtown Association a proposal they wish to bring to the Budget Committee today. And I can tell you that their proposal, if the Budget Committee feels you want to fund it, there's funding available in our visitor industry program account or fund through the motel tax if you wish to and find value and wish to fund it. And I can give you more details as we address that. The water treatment plant construction, another city council goal, which breaks ground here this month. Plus, I should say that in many ways we've already started this project with the underground infrastructure being installed this past year. City facilities master plan with a focus on City Hall was another item that is on the city council goals, and we're going to be pursuing that master plan this coming year. Support for the development of a Lebanon transload truck to rail facility. This is a project that's being spearheaded by an attorney out of Salem. Lebanon has become the focus of this program, this project. It's in many ways a reaction to the closure of Terminal 6 in Portland and trying to address a way to get truck traffic off of I-5 and also out of the metro area in Portland. It seems that it makes sense through a feasibility study that the state conducted to locate a transload facility here in our industrial area on the west side that would allow trucks to come to Lebanon to unload onto rails, which would then be transported up through Portland to the Tacoma area or down south to the facilities in the Bay Area. Implement a wetlands mitigation strategy. This is something that Walt Wendelowski and I are currently working on. A high water table this year has delayed a lot of that work because we can't get the accurate numbers through our consultant that we need. However, we are expecting a report from him in either June or July. That will then open up our ability to, that's the redelineation, I should say, of our wetlands. It's a more scientific look at where our wetlands really are. We discovered that the delineation that the Council of Governments did for us some years ago was very broad and relied on a broad assessment, but not necessarily a complete scientific analysis of where the wetlands are. We are currently, because this was part of last year's goals also, we are currently pursuing that redelineation with a strategy to how to mitigate the barrier that the wetlands mitigation creates for development on our industrial lands. So that project will be going forward. Maintain police staffing commensurate with community growth, and that is the reason why you see an additional police officer proposed in the budget. As far as the strategic action plans, maintain library and expand program offerings. This is what I addressed that we were going to hopefully be able to do after the beginning of the year. Build the community garden, which we're anticipating this summer. Develop a strategy to address wetlands mitigation, which I just addressed. Update the community transportation system plan and create a transit development plan. Both of those items are currently underway and will continue into this next year. Support development of the Lebanon transload facility. Again, we've addressed that. Build the new city water treatment plant and maintain police funding. So this budget covers July 1 of this year through June 30 of next year, provides all of our authority for our projects and services for the city for the fiscal year. It really is our master plan for the year. It contains 6 broad funds, and within those funds there are 64 divisions or departments, and we'll be going through many of those here this afternoon. The budget totals about $69.6 million. in spending authority. It reflects a $3.5 million increase, and nearly $2 million of that is new capital spending as compared to the current year. This is how it all shakes out. These are numbers that are contained in the budget, so I won't spend a lot of time on them, but these are the 6 funds that I mentioned just in the previous slide. This is how it breaks out. Enterprise funds, we see that at 51%, plus the capital you see at 17%. There's some operations in the enterprise fund, of course, but between those two makes up that 53%. Oh, and also the TIF is different, but makes up that capital, 53% of the budget being capital that I mentioned before. So when we look at our budget, there's an appropriated budget, which is all the spending authority that the budget committee and the council grants to the city. But then we also want to look at what is the effective budget, and that's the budget that is spending out beyond the border of the corporate city. So to the outer world, we have internal transfers where money comes in, let's say it's the general fund, then we transfer it out, which is as an expense, and then it's collected again in another fund and spent again, so we double all that. So to get rid of that doubling, you subtract the internal transfers, so the effective budget you see is $64 million, again half of that being capital, and a big part of that 5.8 being the PERS. Graphically, if that's what you like, there you go. And by the way, this is posted on the city website if you want to go back and look at this later. Here again, the effective budget that I just talked about, the $64 million. If we want to look at our operating budget, we take out the capital appropriations, our contingencies, which are monies that aren't allocated at this point. We get down to 21.7 in an operating budget. That's a 4.3% increase over the prior year, and 2.8% of that is due to the PERS increase. Again, the graphic illustration of what I just showed you. Okay, let's move on to the general fund. As in the last few years, the general fund is composed of 13 active departments, and you see those all listed there. General fund totals about $10.8 million in external appropriation spending authority. Again, it provides all of the authority we need to provide the services of the 13 divisions previously listed. The general fund provides funding for the one new police officer position. And we also provide support through the general fund to some internal service funds within the budget, so we're transferring $900,000 out of the general fund into other funds. This is what the general fund looks like as far as increase over the prior year. Graphically, 6.6% increase. Here is the look at our operating beginning and ending fund balances, or the reserves, as they're sometimes called. The council about a year and a half ago adopted policies, and on the right side of the screen shows what those goals were. The plan ends in fiscal year 21. You can see that we've actually already met our goal. We're at 25.1% coming into this new year. We budget so that if we spent every penny in the budget, we would end up at the 16% that we need to be at. That is 16%, which is the 14 plus a 2% contingency that the financial policies require. So we're doing really well as far as our reserves. I think many will recall that it wasn't so long ago that we had some serious issues with that, but I'm feeling very good that those days have passed. So let's look at the urban renewal budget. Again, it covers the same time period as the city budget. It provides all of our budget authority for the activity of the agency. And there are 3 self-balancing divisions which represent our 3 different districts. The budget totals just a little over $6 million, which is a fairly large increase, almost $3.4 million increase between all three of those areas. Most of that is in the Cheetah Lake URD because of funding for Airport Road, for the extension there, for improvements on Russell Drive, and for the construction of the community garden, and also some funding, partial funding for the water treatment plant. So, and then another important item new in this budget is that the Northwest Urban Renewal District has completed its project list, and therefore we are going to underfund it beginning this year, which means we only levy what we need to pay our debt and the cost of keeping the agency going. What that means, that's good news for overlapping districts like the fire district, the county, and so forth. They're going to be able to collect some of that revenue that in the past has gone to the URD. This is the hope of urban renewal, that before you begin one of these districts, you identify an area where tax values are perhaps low, where there's blight and conditions that need to be improved upon. You create the district, improvements are made as far as infrastructure, incentives for development, and so forth. And then there comes a day where you are able to underfund or ultimately retire the district, and then all of the new value that's grown because of the district then benefits those overlapping districts. So we're beginning that process now. We won't be sunsetting until 2028. That's when we pay off our debt related to the Lowe's project. But this is good news for our overlapping districts. So this is how the three different districts shake out in the budget, totaling about almost $9 million. Again, you'll see Cheetah Lake there at $3.8 million in the past. That has been the minor player among the three districts, but they're stepping up now to begin some serious capital improvements. And to drive that point home a little bit more, this slice last year when I showed you was 10% for Cheetah Lake. And now we're almost half of all of our urban renewal activity this coming year is in the Cheetah Lake district. So here again, if we want to look at our effective budget, we take out transfers. We get down to an effective budget of a hair over $6 million, and that is a 124% increase. Again, that is because of those capital projects, primarily in the Cheetah Lake district. That's what it looks like graphically. And then if we put the two budgets together, take out our transfers, and we see that the actual effective budget for both in our community, we've got about a $70 million spend either through the city or the Urban Renewal Agency. That's how that stacks out. Urban Renewal makes up about 10%, the city the rest. So, of course, as always, many special thanks are necessary for this budget. The document that you have in front of you is substantial, and it really is the result of a lot of folks, primarily on staff, working hard, extra hours to get this thing done in time for you. I want to thank Dean Baugh, of course, our finance director, his staff, of course, all of the department directors and their support staffs, my assistant. It really is an effort of all of us, and I thank everyone for all their hard work. That is the end of my presentation. If you have questions, I would be happy to address those or direct them to staff who would have the answers. We could probably put the lights up if we want. Well, they may want to go back.
Okay. You have a question, sir?
Yes, either now or when we get into the specifics, could we discuss the matrix with respect to the increased staffing in the police department so that we might understand, how that motion that the city council made to maintain the staffing pattern in the police department commensurate with the growth, what those matrix are going to look like in population growth and staffing growth.
Yeah. I believe the chief can address that when he has his presentation. I can tell you that it's been since, I think, fiscal 13 at the earliest that, or actually at the latest, that we've actually added anybody to the police department. So anything at this point is an important down payment, but I'll let the chief address that more fully under his presentation.
Any other questions?
Okay, real quick, I want to take a 30,000-foot view of the budget, kind of step you through the document, show you where things are at. First thing we want to hit is the budget message. If you've noticed, this year we've changed the page numbering there to A through E, because every time we adjust the budget or Gary writes his budget, it's one page less, one page more. We got to renumber the whole budget. So this year we said, let's just give it its own numbering system so he can write a 20-page message and it won't affect anything else. So that's why the numbering's changed there, just for administrative. So if you step through that, you'll see a lot of the highlights where we're pulling out the highlighted items for the budget. Significant changes. Some of the stuff Gary just had in his presentation are also shown in here. So that's a good, if you don't read anything, that's a good spot to read.
If you don't read anything, that's a good spot to read. Is that what you just said?
No. If you don't read anything else, read the message, and I'll show you a couple
I
other
didn't know that was
spots.
an option. I want to be clear next
Take
year.
you
I
some
might
time,
do this
yeah. So then we kind of flip through the first number of pages are just graphs, kind of giving you a graphical view of this other 300 pages. Because it's kind of nice to see how we grow, what grows, what changes. Some of the most important stuff I like is pages 4 through 8. It's the proposed budget summary. Most of what Gary just presented, the budget message, all the numbers for these documents come out of these pages 4 through 8. Because this kind of summarizes all the numbers into 4 or 5 pages here. So it gives you a total overview comparing year to year and where we're going. So most of what we're presenting comes right out of there. Page 11 shows you the city debt and our payoff schedules. The reason that one part, the big red part, is still there is that's the $23 million we borrowed for the water plant. We don't have a payoff schedule for that yet because he's just starting to spend it, so we don't have a pay down. So that's just basically $23 million out there till it's done. Once we get that payoff, we'll see that decline once we get that done. So that's what that is. This schedule does not include the $4 million we're issuing next week to pay for the Airport Road, Russell Drive, Porter Park, those projects. We've got a loan closing up on the 18th this month, so that is not in there either. So those two things. The next page is starting on page 12. Gary talks a lot about interfund transfers. This tells you where they come from and where they go. All the next between page 12 and page 17. So if you want to know what we're moving back and forth, that tells you where and what. And it shows you we've got like $7,358,562 of transfers going between funds.
I found that I liked this format that you did it. I mean, to kind of, you got to speak down to me a little bit in these documents, and I thought this was very helpful.
Yeah, and
Credit to Dean.
Yeah, I try to put them in order of where the money's going. So if you're looking for an account number, if it's going to the 545, it's in that order. So the general fund's usually first and works down. I tried to figure out some way to where I could find things easier in it. So that's how it's organized. Next couple of pages is just the budget process. Kind of gives an overview of where we started last January, December, to where we're going to end in June. Or hope that's kind of the process we have to take. That includes the calendars on the next 2 pages. So pages 24 back to 280, that's all the detail pages for all the different departments and funds. So you can go through there and find those broke out by all the different departments. The next section is personnel. It basically shows you who's authorized in what departments. The items in yellow are what changed this year. So it kind of shows you, we dropped, in the engineering department, we dropped a project engineer. If you go back It was taken out of engineering. He was moved back to the water department. He's now in the part of the water plant. So we've moved him around. We've added the electrician. Yeah, when you go to the water plant, you'll see on page 291, project engineer water plant. Well, that's where that guy moved to. Then we added an electrician, and then we added a police officer. So the yellow item shows you what changed throughout the year.
What page are you on exactly?
That was page
94.
290 to 294.
That way back in the
Oh,
back.
way back.
Way in the
Okay.
back, under
Yeah.
the personnel tab.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, way in the back. We're back behind the detail pages. So that shows you how personnel are authorized. And then the next few pages shows you the proposed pay schedules. And the only one here is the police department one is not final because we're still in negotiations, so that hasn't been updated yet. So, the next section is organizational charts. It shows an overall city organization, and then it breaks it down by individual departments, how each department is organized, and who works for who. The whole next section is all the resolutions we have to approve in June to authorize the budget. And then the far back part, you'll see under detail pages, that's the directors. If you go through there by each department, you'll see the detail for all these numbers. And usually we try to tell them if the number is bigger than 5,000, put something back here. That's kind of the thought. And so they break it out into what goes into all those numbers. Throughout the budget, I used some assumptions. We looked at assessed value. We put it up at 3.5% increase on assessed value when I look at the county's numbers. I can say over the last couple of years, it's actually come in over 4. When they finally get down to the final ending, they're usually a little bit 4 or a little bit over. So we use 3.5 to be conservative. County collection rate is just a hair under 94%. So when we do I say I'm going to collect $1 million in taxes, I multiply that by 94%, and then that's what I expect to get when we do the budget. Because I will say, over the long run, the county does a real good job. They usually collect more than 94%, but sometimes that other 6% doesn't come in for 3, 4, 5 years. It takes a while. But in each year, they've been averaging pretty close to 94%. It's pretty steady. Compression, which is based on Measure 5, Measure 50, we're estimating about $90,000 again this year. As property values are changing in real markets getting close to assessed value, compression keeps changing. It's a hard target to hit. So we're using $90,000 again this year. As Gary said, our PERS rate went up. Tier 1 and Tier 2 went up by 4.67%. OPSERP went up 2.69%, and OPSERP Police went up 3.35%. That's just on the percentage. When you calculate that out to the end, it comes out to about the 32% that Gary was talking about when you come down to dollar numbers. So, and they're looking at that exact same kind of percentage raise 2 years from now, and again 2 years from then is what they're talking about. And there's even rumbling out there that maybe the 2 years after that too. We'll see what happens. So on insurance rates, I estimated on general liability about a 10%, auto and all the auto was 15%, and property was 10%, workman's comp about 15%. When I went to we got the numbers from the CIS conference here in February. Their numbers that they're projecting are a little bit lower than that, but then each city their overall numbers are a little bit lower than these projections, but then each city is evaluated separately. Sometimes you're higher, sometimes you're lower than the average. So we to be conservative, we went a little bit higher than what they're proposing. Again, this budget has 2 new positions, a police officer and an electrician. It includes a 1.5% COLA for ASME exempt and Teamster, and ASME exempt and part-times, and Teamsters, like I said, we're still in negotiations, so we don't know where that's going to fall. The budget does include the 2% working contingency and the 14% goal that the council was looking for on their contingencies. So that's the 30,000-foot view. Now we get down in the mud and we invite all the departments up, let directors up.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Any questions for Dean?
Just a verification.
Yes, sir.
When you guys talk about the PERS increases for the future, you're talking the same percentage, not by dollar amount, is that correct?
Right, it's going to be close to the same percentage. Of course, dollar amounts will be a little bit higher because salaries went up and things, so the dollar amounts will be higher. So if it was $300,000 this year, in 2 years it could be $400,000.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure
Based on-
that I
on
was
percentages.
understanding that
Yeah.
correct.
So, yes, ma'am.
In the budget message on page A, it says the increased PERS obligations are $304,276.
Okay.
And then on page B,
Uh-oh.
you say that they're $250,000.
I'm thinking one is overall, one is just general fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, the 200,000 is just the general fund, the 300 is for overall city.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If there's no other questions, what I'd like to do now is open the public hearing to discuss possible uses of state revenue sharing funds. Would anybody like to speak? And we will close that hearing. And we will open for public input on the city's proposed budget. Would anybody like to address that? I think that's you, Wyatt.
It looks very public-y.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
I can get us going here.
So good afternoon. I'm Dayla Johnson. I'm the president of the Lebanon Downtown Association, and we're here to request funding. Bob, turn off your cell phone. We're here to request $8,000 for our Main Street manager position for the 2017-2018 year. Along with our current funds and additional funds from our budget, this will reestablish us back to the $20,000 that you guys started us with last year. So that was $12,000 that we have in holding from last year. Lebanon Downtown Association is needing to start fresh again. Our prior Main Street manager was not a good fit for us. She did not make the progress towards the goals that we had set. And she was unable to make significant advances towards the Oregon Main Street goals, as well as raising the funding that we needed for our 2018 self-funding goal. We terminated this position in March of this year, and we are currently looking to fill that position again, which we're hoping to fill come July 1.
Hi, everybody. Wyatt King, board member for the Lebanon Downtown Association. And the Main Street manager position is very important to us, and it's important to meeting our goals for downtown revitalization. In our excitement to get this going, we did make a couple of mistakes in our initial hire, and we're here to own up to those. We hired too fast. We selected a volunteer who was not sufficiently self-motivated or open to direction. And our fix for that is, of course, we're going to be hiring slower. Gary said that he makes a promise to himself that he doesn't hire people who he's not truly excited about, and that is a great piece of advice for us. He is on our hiring committee, and we are making the same commitment. We are not going to hire somebody unless we are truly excited about them, and we're really soliciting this time. We have one person who is a potential, but we're still looking for more to make sure that we have great applicants for our second go-around. Another mistake that we made was we fired too slow. We could have fired in November, but we wanted to give our Main Street manager a second chance and the benefit of the doubt, and so we gave them a 60-day review period to really hope that they would turn things around, and they didn't. Our fix for that is we are going to have defined monthly expectations, a 30-day warning period if they don't meet those, a 30-day probation period at the end of which they will be terminated. And finally, we had a lack of accountability because we did not sufficiently utilize oversight and auditory processes. Is that right? We did not audit them well enough. And our fix for that is going to be a biweekly report to a board member who will be assigned to oversee the Main Street manager and make sure that they are meeting their goals. And we also have quarterly audits to, again, make sure that things are being met. And we also have some promises because we need to make up for what we didn't do last year. We promise to aid in the Lebanon 2040 vision because the Downtown Association and the Main Street Manager are a huge part of our vision and action plan. We're in the downtown section, of course. 5.1, complete the Oregon Main Street program. 5.2, the downtown marketing plan. Both of these, which the Main Street Manager will be an integral component of making these things reality. In arts and culture, we need help to get our Saturday market going even stronger. We did get that going last year, but we want to improve upon it. We have section 1.3, the chalk art, and then 1.4, the performances in the parks. Small town values, 16.1, getting the Shop Lebanon program going again. Of course, the Main Street Manager will be a very important part of this in coordinating with the businesses. And then 17.1, Community Pride Day, which everybody, May 20th this year, coming up. I'm on the hook if it fails, so please come help me out. Sorry that we're competing a little bit with the fire department. We'll work on that for next year. And these do not include actions where we aren't the lead partner. So there are many actions in the downtown plan and throughout the whole Lebanon 2040 vision where we are associated partners. And of course, having a dedicated Main Street Manager is going to be very important for our ability to live up to these commitments.
Some of the positive things that we have done in the last 8 months as the Lebanon Downtown Association, we did increase our concerts in the park from 4 weeks to 8 weeks, which was huge for us. We also started our Saturday market. It was a 2-month run. We learned a lot of mistakes from that, and hopefully we will continue to grow that Saturday market. And we're hoping to partner with the other Saturday market that's also in town. We partnered with the Boys and Girls Club with their Brew Fest. We actually provided a security team to help them out that evening. So we partnered with them to help them with that situation. We also got local downtown shopping during the holiday season with promotion committee working on businesses to bring shoppers downtown. We had carriage rides. We had window contests, paint nights. So we've really been working with getting our businesses to be proactive downtown. We are diligently continuing to work on our 2040 vision goals that were set by the City Council in April of 2016. And just recently, we just submitted a $20,000 grant to the State of Oregon for Diamonds in the Rough grant for a building downtown, the Brown Building. This is huge for us because being part of Main Street, Oregon, this is why we're able to put these grants in. I was actually given some help from the State of Oregon. It was many, many hours on my own time to work with Lyndon Brown. No more said. And we worked a lot to make this grant happen. And we've got our fingers crossed that we will get this $20,000 grant to do some revitalization working on the front of their business in the 600 block of Main Street. So, to sum it up, we are, when we came to you last year, the question was asked, are you going to come back next year? And we did say that we were hoping that by 2018 we would be self-sufficient. We really had hoped to be a little farther than where we are right now, but we did have a bad Main Street Manager that just did not work out. And that is a mistake that we have to deal with, and we have been dealing with it. We have kept the quarterly reports going on the Main Street, Oregon, just so that we can continue to stay with them, because that's critical. We took a huge step in making that happen just to get into Main Street. There's only 12 communities in the state of Oregon that's even at our level. So to where we have gotten is huge. Lebanon's awesome, and we are going to, I'm hoping by 2019, 2020, we will be at performing level. I think that we can do it. We've got some great new board members on board. Hopefully in a couple of years this will be your new president. And we've got a vision. So I think with having this great vision and having a great city that supports us, we can make this happen.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
How many board members, Dana?
We have 12 board members. And one non-voting board member, which is Walt Wendolowski from the City of Lebanon.
Anybody else?
How do you give me an idea? Is to what the goals are that you're looking to establish for the manager? Just a few items as to what your expectations are.
One of our biggest things that we are looking for in a new manager is marketing, grant writing, and people skills. You have to have those three things to make downtown, to work in our downtown. We had 4 candidates, and it was an interesting pick. We have not officially chosen the candidate that we want yet because we're still doing some background. We're hoping that if we can get this 20,000, if we can get our funds back to 20,000, that we can get a match, hopefully, from the Ford Foundation, so that we can increase this person. I mean, can you imagine that you're going to move here for $1,000 a month for a part-time job? So we're hoping to increase those hours and that money so that we have some incentive to bring a qualified person here to Lebanon to make what we need to happen in downtown. So.
And Todd, as far as specific goals for the Main Street manager and what we want them to accomplish, one big one is, of course, self-funding their position, and not only funding their own position, but increasing the amount of hours that we're able to allocate. And we have a couple of different ideas for that. We're developing an incentive plan to actually give them some skin in the game, so when they bring in money, they also get some money. We're also exploring a secondary funding position that would not be the Main Street manager, but would help out on the same incentive-based donation raising to help make that more sustainable. As far as for the Oregon Main Street performing downtown from the transforming downtown status, they have a 4-point approach, but they also have what they call the Main Street approach, and they look for events and actions that we have taken that are comprehensive, incremental. They enable businesses and nonprofits to succeed, and they identify and capitalize on existing assets. So there's actually a lot of overlap with the 2040 goals that we're connected with, and so we will be focusing very heavily on where those overlap to try and get into that performing downtown status. Another big goal that we'll have as part of our promise to the money that we got in the first time from the tourism department is to increase tourism and our exposure through the downtown. And I'm going to be working with the new Main Street manager to show them how to really utilize Facebook targeting. So we're promoting cost effectively throughout all Linn County, but not really competing too much against the bigger markets like Corvallis and Albany, Eugene, and Salem, where we'll be drowned out because we just don't have the funds. Now, we will explore in the future ways to get into those markets, but for the most part, we're going to be trying to really increase our reach in places like, Scio and Sweet Home, places where we can get a lot of bang for our buck.
The one question I had, you answered very well, and I appreciate that, because I was going to ask, how are we going to prevent what happened last time again? And you did, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys coming forward and admitting the problems and how you're going to fix that. My question is then, so what are you guys asking for? What do you need?
We're asking for $8,000.
How much?
$8,000.
Okay.
We actually have a little less than $10,000 in our account. We are going to jimmy some funds in our other account and put that back up to $12,000. That's going to leave us running real rough, but we can do that. When we came to you last time, we were in the red. I believe that we shared that with you, and we actually got out of the red and into the black last year. So that was one of the goals of the board of directors, was to make that happen, and the board worked diligently to bring it from the red into the black, and we did do that. So we do have enough money to bring that amount back up to $12,000, so that all we have to ask for is $8,000 to get that line item back to $20,000.
I was pretty concerned about handing city money and what kind of accountability we were going to request of you. So I'm pretty pleased to hear you, like the group, taking responsibility for that and having a plan and presenting it. So you have addressed my concerns for the most part. My question would be, Gary, you are a part of this group and you're part of the hiring. You feel pretty good about the chances of continuing to fund this and the group getting on self-funding by 2019, 2020? Is that what you...
We're hoping, yes.
That's your goal?
Yes.
I do feel a level of confidence that I wouldn't have had in the prior year. I'm not a member of the board, but I was a member of the hiring committee that interviewed the 4 candidates. I am familiar with the candidate that the focus is on now, and believe if this individual checks out, that they would be very effective based on the interview that I participated in. So I do feel that the board has positioned itself well to accomplish. Actually, it's part of our strategic action plan to assist the Downtown Association to become an Oregon Main Street community. So this is a furtherance of the goal that we were hoping to address last year, but I'm feeling like chances of success are significantly improved over last year.
I would propose that the city fund the additional $8,000 and ask for the association to provide to the city council quarterly reports on meeting those goals.
Absolutely.
We have a proposal as in a motion?
Yes.
As in a motion. Do we have a second?
I'd second it.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded.
Mr. Chair, may I inform the committee? To fund that, if you look at page 129 in account 511, under, it'd be the first line that has numbers on it there, over to the right, there's an amount listed there of $10,000 under contract services. This is the visitor industry program funded through the motel tax. This is an amount that's not designated at this time, and I would propose that the motion be directed to this funding source.
Move to that, make that adjustment.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded. Again, since we amended it.
Oh, I second the amended
Okay.
motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. This passes.
Thank you.
I do want to thank both of you. You have represented the committee, and I know the hard work that you guys have been doing. I commend you for that. And as far as things not working out, sometimes lessons learned are worth at least the amount of money lost.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you both for coming.
I'd just like to underscore the quarterly report to
Correct.
the council.
Yes. That was part of the amendment.
We will make that available.
Yes, you will. Okay, anybody else care to say anything? All right, we will close the public input, and we'll move on to the department director presentations. And I believe first on my list would be Ron Whitlatch.
Actually, it's going to be me and Jason at the same time. How's that?
I'm easy.
Okay.
Does he have to leave again and travel like he did last year?
No.
I mean, any reason to get out of here quick, right, Jason?
Travel. Absolutely.
Got a plane to catch.
So is that on? Well, thanks for having us. What our intent was to go over the overall department with you, the overall public works department. Kind of give you the highlights in that and where we're at. And then if you have specific questions regarding any of the funds, I'd be more than happy to answer any of those too. I did. Sorry. So anyway, I guess we'll start out that way. If anybody has any objections to that, we good with that? Okay.
What page are you going to start on?
I'm not going to start on a page.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to kind of give you an overview, and then if you have specific questions about a page, we're more than happy to go through it with you. So currently in engineering, I'll start with engineering first. We're down. We're not necessarily down one FTE. It's still budgeted in this year's budget. Ed Patton retired. We've since moved Shanna Olson downstairs, and she's doing the development for us. We're evaluating that position to see where the need's going to be. We're going to give it a 6-month evaluation, kind of play things out and see whether it will or will not be needed. It is budgeted this year, though. In the meantime, we've got 2 temporary interns that we're working with us now. They are both students at LB going through the engineering program, and they're on temporary status working for us on the construction end, just with our inspectors and learning the ropes and doing some of the day-to-day grind work that takes a little bit of pressure off of our staff. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of staffing. Any questions regarding that? Okay. Another big thing this year, utility inflationary adjustments. Everybody wants to know about that. So this year's CCI was 3.9%. That proposal will be coming to City Council in May. However, we looked at the budget this year, looked at what our increases were, and we're proposing 3. Basically, we think we can do with 3 as opposed to the 3.9 due to the inflation. So this budget does reflect that 3%, not the 3.9. And again, that will come to City Council in May for approval of those resolutions or denial, whichever way we go there.
Ron,
Sir,
are we looking like, is that a trend, that 3.9? Or,
It just
are we going to fall
varies from
further
year to
behind
year.
and have to have a bigger catch-up? Or do we want to stay, you see what I'm saying?
I would say that we're not going to go behind
Okay.
with 3. No, that's what we look at. We had the PERS hit this year. Obviously, that's an increase. We didn't have any real staffing increases. One of the things that we're looking at probably for next year's budget, and we're trying to prepare for, is operation of 2 water treatment plants for that fiscal year. So, in looking at that, we've kind of set some money aside for that. I think once we get the major capital done here with the water treatment plant, we could go back to more of a CPI index instead of the construction cost index, which is going to be less. But I think we're keeping pace with it right now.
Okay.
By no means are we going to go out and fix all the capital issues that we have with that, but we can definitely stay pace with the staffing levels that we have now. So. Budget includes a transfer this year from the general fund to the city or the streets capital improvement fund of $55,000. It's been probably 10 years since we've updated our street rating of Lebanon streets. It's probably time to do that so we can. Not that we have a whole big drawer full of money for streets, but I think it's important that we stay on top of it and know exactly where we're at in terms of what the needs are. It also helps the state, when we're able to give them an idea of what Lebanon needs to maintain their streets or where we think we're deficient, because there's a big push across the country, even from a federal level on down, with transportation and roadways. And the more information we have on that as an organization, I think the better we'll be able to approach it. So we're gonna do a consultant survey this summer to inventory the city's streets, basically give us a rating and come up with an overall hypothetical dollar value that what it would take to get them to a grade A standard. I think we all know that that's not going to happen with the amount streets cost, but it at least gives us a ballpark idea of what we're doing.
So Ron, that's what the consultant will put it at though?
Yeah. So we'll hire somebody to go through and rank the streets, basically, and there's a multitude of ways to do it. I think we'll look at something fairly simplified. I don't want to get into some of the studies that you can do, but just something to give us an idea, a snapshot. I mean, we can go out and look at them right now and tell you this, but I may look at it one way, and Jason may look at it the other way, and at the end of the day, it'll just give us a better idea. And then you want to talk about the other portion of the transfer of the streets from the general fund? For your electrician?
Yeah. Historically, we've transferred money from the general fund to pay for streetlights and the maintenance of those throughout the city. We've developed such a large bill with our electricians. It just makes sense for us to use some of that money to fund our own position, so we're not at the mercy of everybody else's schedule. So that's what that transfer is for, to help offset those costs. It's not an addition because the transfer will come into the building maintenance fund. So that will take care of the electrician for us, or portion of the electrician for us. The rest of that position will be funded through utilities, streets, take care of traffic cabinets, traffic signals, street lights, and our building and operations throughout the city.
Okay. then kind of moving on, some of the bigger things that we've got this year, obviously the water treatment plant's getting ready to start. We'll be bringing back our last amendment at the next week's council meeting. By the way, that looks good. We've seen that, and we're going to be below what we projected originally. So not by much, but some. So that's coming back. The water treatment plant, Gary covered Airport Road project out of the URD. Porter Park is another one. That will get some discussion this week at the City Council, or next week. We're going to come in and kind of discuss a proposal. The consultant estimate for that project is anywhere from $1.3 to $1.5 million. That's after us paring it down. A couple $100,000 of that is for the street that needs to be done around Taylor and Willow in order to get parking in there, sidewalks. And then we're proposing probably to spend roughly $700,000 of that loan on that. Is that God talking to us?
Comes the thunderstorms moving in.
That's too much. Yeah. So originally we had hoped to bid that project. In fact, we did ask council in April to bid that project, but I think what is going to end up happening in order to control cost and get as much of it done as we can, and the money that we have, Jason and I are probably going to have to general contract that in terms of the maintenance guys are going to have to do little pieces, and we're going to have to contract out little pieces of it in order to make it a functional park by the time we're done, just based on the design that was done. So that's happening, and I'll let Jason talk to you about the rest of the parks.
Yeah, we have an addition this year. We've transferred ownership of the Lebanon Community Foundation Cheetah Lake property to the City of Lebanon. That happens with this budget year, council action. That's really the only increase we have as far as property is concerned. You know, we have some other projects that are going on that are going to take a lot of staff time, but right now we kind of want to hold our ground and see how we get through this year as far as maintaining and operating those facilities, and we'll reevaluate staffing next year depending on the outcomes of that.
Yeah.
So kind of just holding the line right now, see where we end up. We have some grant applications out. We have a large government grant application out for Century Park to replace the restroom building, resurface the courts, youth baseball field upgrade, and remove the old building, the old Boys and Girls Club building, and place a picnic shelter in its place, as well as a recreational trails grant to pave Cheetah Lake Island Loop trails, the only last remaining rock trails we have out there. Any questions on any of that?
Okay, that's kind of a summary of the big stuff in the department. We're more than happy to go through any particular fund that you want to go through, or any questions you may have. Everything else is pretty much, those are the highlights. The increases and decreases, the rest of it stayed pretty much the same as last year.
Any questions? Any detailed questions?
Just have a comment. I applaud the electrician decision. I think that's smart governance, and it just makes sense. And so kudos on that. And on a side note, too, to both of you, the work, I know we've said this for a long time now, but the work that's gone into the treatment plant and the revalue engineering and all of that has been, I know, tough and very much appreciated by the council. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that electrician will be able to be used at our facilities as well, both water and wastewater facilities.
Jason, who will be changing the light bulbs in the street lights?
Well, if they're city-owned street lights, we will take care of that. And the way you can determine whether they're city-owned or not is if they're on a metal pole. If they're on a wood power pole, that's the power company.
The number that's on the pole?
Yeah, well, actually, if it's wood, it's the power company's pole. If it's metal, kind of like Hansard or Grant Street or downtown, that's the city.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next would be administration.
Okay, we can go to page 36. We really don't have changes of much note to discuss. Pretty much in administration, we're holding the line to where we've been. There are of course, no additions to staff. We feel like we've been running well with the way we're set up now. So if there are any questions about our budget, I'll be happy to address those.
I do have a quick question. On page 24, the top column up there, we're not diverting that much money to personal services, are we? It's personnel.
Where are we?
The top column on 24, the first column to the left is personal services. That should be personnel, right? Or do you have a little bank account somewhere, I guess is my question.
Actually, the term for Oregon government finance is personal services.
Is it really?
Yeah, but it does refer to personnel. But it's the concept is the city is employing personal services to support their operations. So we're just merely in compliance with the way the state of Oregon has set up things.
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah.
I just thought it was just my tax dollars in action.
So, any other questions? The other areas of administration would be human resources. Again, I don't have much to report there. We have a Department of One with Debbie Shimon there. She continues to do a great job for us. No significant changes there. And then, of course, there's the city attorney contract, which reflects the new contract via the city council. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to respond to any of those.
Any questions for Gary? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next would be community development. Walt Wendelowski. I just love saying that name.
It certainly took me a while.
I know my wife keeps saying that name. I got to get him cookies.
Yes, we would love to have some volunteers for that. Good afternoon, members of the Budget Committee. I'm Walt Wendelowski, Community Development Director here in town. And just a brief overview, community development actually has three basic functions. One is building, the other is planning, and we have a third function, is sort of the permit center and administrative support for maintenance and utility services. So with a staff of 2.8, we take on quite a bit of work. And also like to note, I'm very proud of staff. I think they do some excellent work. And I just thought I'd throw that in there. Our budget for planning is found under Fund 126, and that's on page 46. We basically have no change in the function or anything that we're doing right now. Gary did point out a few of our projects that are wrapping up this year. We have a material and services budget of about $6,500. I'll be happy to go through the details on that. So before I proceed to the next one, are there any questions or issues?
What do you anticipate with respect to project workload in your three main functions in this next year?
This thing varies greatly. Right now we're doing a lot of work in terms of building permits because of prior approved projects through the planning process. Planning has seemed to slow down a little bit, so we're doing a little bit more building work. There was a lot of activity with utility services or engineering services with capital improvements. For example, the bid packets, those thick bid packets that are put out there, that is done by staff in community development, and they've been spending a lot of time on that. Basically, most of it is working with the public and building permit processes. That seems to be the core of the activity right now. But that could change tomorrow, and I'm anticipating a couple of bigger projects coming in later this calendar year, so things can change.
Walt, how much time does the department do with, capital projects in terms of once they're initiated and funded? What's your...
Ron might have a little bit better handle on that because he deals directly with Tammy in terms of those issues. As I said, right now, her and Sierra spent an awful lot of time in terms of, obviously, the water treatment plant, et cetera. Now, in fact, I think this year there were, I want to say, 17 capital projects that they're working on, and now some of them may have been done. And again, next year's budget will change that as well.
Thanks, Walt.
However, I will say we get things done on time, so that's good.
You do a great job.
Anything else on 126? Okay, the second fund is building 527. This is on page 135. Again, there is no change in terms of our functions or workload. I can't say workload, but we handle any and all building permits in the city, including plans review, inspections, certificates, etc. The only thing we do not do is electrical permits. That is handled through Lynn County. And there are certain legislative reasons for that to occur. I would like to note that we have one building official, and he's under contract, and so the beauty of that is if we have a lot of work, we have enough money through the fees to pay him. If we don't have a lot of work, then we don't have that budget expenditure. So that has worked out extraordinarily well, and I plan to continue that unless the fees exceed like a couple $100,000, but so far it's looking real good. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Walt?
With the housing market as it is right now, have you seen an uptick in activity?
I'm trying to recall one of my last messages. We've actually had a steady increase in single-family homes. The downside of that is that we've now consumed a lot of our available lots, and there's not a lot of people lining up to do subdivisions, and there's a variety of factors, public facility improvements, the market. We seem to be in this in-between market, and I think there's a lot of demand for that entry-level home, but I think it's a matter of a developer taking that risk to maintain that. We obviously have had a lot of multifamily development, which I think has absorbed some of the market as well. But at a time, I think there was a 3-year period where we had, I want to say 5 or 6 single-family home permits. I mean, it was really bad. We were over 60 last year. I want to say closer to 70 single-family homes last calendar year. So things have certainly improved.
Good.
Any other questions? All righty.
Okay, thank you,
Walt. And Dean, you're up next.
Okay, I got to go through a bunch of departments here. Number one is the finance department. We have a total of 6 FTEs still this year, and one of those is split between the finance office and the city court. She goes back and forth each week. On court days, you'll find her down at the courthouse when you go do your visits. Sorry. So other than that, nothing, if you look at our materials and service budget, it's the same as last year. We did move some numbers around to make, so budget spent where we need it, but so numbers are the same, we just changed the order of it. You will notice throughout all the general fund departments, and I'll hit that more when I get to 195, because if you look at Department 195 here in a minute,
Yes, that is a train coming at you through the tunnel.
That sounds like a helicopter landing out here. You'll notice in Department 195, it jumped up quite a bit this year. The reason for that is if you look at each of the general fund departments, we've moved the transfer for information services and the PERS bond out of each individual department and moved it into the general fund. That was another one of those that every time we made a change someplace, we had to change it in 25 places. So we just said, why not just put it in one number? Then we can see what the number is, what's coming out of the general fund, instead of spreading it out. So you'll notice that each of these lines transfers out or zeroed out this year in all the general fund departments. It's moved to 195. So the next department I have is the court department, which is 170, and that's on page 68. We have basically two and a half FTEs down there to run court. They have court 2 days a week, all year except for Christmas. We have the municipal judge who's on contract. His contract is up for renewal. We'll be at this next council meeting next week for renewal. So we've had the same judge since 2009, I think it is, and all we hear is good things about him. So we're bringing that contract back this year. This budget did go up a little bit, about $1,500. There were some maintenance items that go on at the police department that they pay part of, gates and all this stuff and heat. So we never had a budget in here for that. So we now put a budget in here for some building maintenance, which pays for part of the facility. So that's why that budget went up a little bit this year.
Quit playing over there.
Other than that, nothing else changed in that budget. Then we jump over to Department 195, and that's on page 80. This is basically our non-allocated department. Items that we have that we don't want to split between all the departments are like League of Oregon City dues, COG dues. All those things are paid out of this. Insurance. A lot of these big expenses that it's really hard to figure out how to spread them out, we charge out of this one. One item we have here is our grants to other organizations. We give money to the Boys and Girls Club, Meals on Wheels, and then we pay some money to the Lynn County Shuttle that goes from Sweet Home to here to Albany to Corvallis and back every day. So we give $6,000 in this budget. There's $6,000 for the Boys and Girls Club, $44,000 for Meals on Wheels, and $8,300 for the Lynn County Shuttle. And what the Lynn County Shuttle, we're basically paying the matching part of a grant is what we pay. Other than that, you can go in and see this has all the expenses like audit. We have our finance software, which is basically utilized by all departments, so it kind of gets put here. Safety committee, and then general fund utilities. A lot of those are paid out of this department. And then like we show down here, we're transferring $422,000 to the information system services and $92,000 to the custodial maintenance division. Then we pay for the PERS bond, streets, and we put some money into the capital reserve fund. This department, is also where we have the contingency. So if you'll notice, last year we budgeted $1.1 million for contingency, which included our operating and working. This year we're budgeting $1.4 million, so it went up by close to $300,000 into our contingency fund. So that meets council goals for the goals on contingency. If you have any questions along the way, please stop me and ask. Just jump right in there.
I would just say it's nice to not have them broken out. When you break out, I appreciate that about the staff level too. Like we used to break out staff between, your 5% here and 10% here, and it was so much more convoluted to try to go through and understand this budget. So
trying to see it.
I like it broken out like that.
Yeah. So when you look at all the enterprise funds and all that, you'll see transfers to the general fund for materials and services and salaries. All the engineers are in Department 130 in the general fund, but they do all their work back in water, sewer, streets, all that. So you'll see in all those money transferred to the general fund to pay for those. And then we do a small percentage of materials and services based on the amount of personnel that are transferred and move those to the general fund also. That way, I've said it before, when I first got here, the finance department had a budget of $70,000. And I kind of went, this is nuts. The other $500,000 was spread out little places.
Yes.
It was hard to find. Now you can look here and say the finance department cost this, or engineering costs that. It seems to be easier.
Way.
So the debt service funds, the next few funds, they start on page 84. We have 3 debt service funds. So 314 pays for the library and justice center. And this last year when we refinanced it, we also refinanced a sewer loan and combined that into this one fund. So this one fund has library, justice center, and a sewer fund. For the wastewater fund, the money is transferred from the wastewater department to here to pay for that bond. The library and justice center are paid through property taxes.
Dean, on that refinance, that was the one that we saved quite a bit of interest, wasn't it?
We saved like $1.1 million on the library and justice center and about $85,000 on the sewer one for that last refinancing. That was, I think, 2 years. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Good.
Then in Fund 317, it was basically again another refinancing. We refinanced a water bond, a wastewater bond, and a Northwest bond. And the Northwest URD bond was the $12 million bond that we used for doing the Lowe's project. So we refinanced all 3 of those and put them into one bond, and they're paid for here. Again, all the funds to pay for those are transferred from water, wastewater, and the Northwest URD. And if you look there, we saved quite a bit of money on those refinancings also. And the last one is our pension bond, which they issued back in 2002. At the time, it saved quite a bit of money. And 2002 was actually one of the last years that it was a good year to issue pension bonds. They got in good. Bonds after that have kind of flipped the other way, where you're spending more on the bond than you are on the you would have not issued the bond. But 2002 is still a good year, so we're still making money on our bond. We're saving money. The last 3 things I want to go over are the URDs. And they're way back here, starting on page 264. So we have 3 urban renewal districts, Northwest, North Gateway, and Cheetah Lake. Like Gary said, the Northwest URD is slowly starting to wind down now. Most of what we've got in there is to pay debt. It's a transfer to the general fund to pay the debt, and there's a debt here. So we're going to spend about $1.7 million to do the debt and a little bit of administration. Everything else we're going to underfund and put back out to all the other districts. And when I say the other district, that includes our general fund. We're calculating that by doing what we're doing, the general fund's going to get about an additional $200,000 to $300,000 in property tax by underfunding here. So, the rest of it's all spread out.
Does the assessor take care of that? Who does that?
If you'll notice, when we get to the resolutions when you look at those, you'll see we have a resolution for each URD. The Cheetah Lake and the North Gateway both say we're going to take 100% of the taxes. If you read the Northwest one, it says up to 100%. And that's what we kind of agreed with the state, and I had to go through a bunch with the state and then last year to get that wording, to add those 2 words. And then when I submit the UR50, which tells the county how to collect taxes, I don't tell them I want a percentage. We have to calculate, I want $1.7 million. And then they figure out where everything else goes. They have in their computer.
They appropriate themselves.
They appropriate whatever they do to spread the rest out. But we have to tell them what we want in actual tax dollars.
That's 1.7.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the resolution, I think we wanted like 1.7 something. The resolution says I want 1.8, because again, you have to take that 94% collection rate, subtract, and you multiply this time, because we have to ask for 1.8 to get 1.7. So that's why when you look at the resolution, it's higher than what the taxes we're wanting.
I think with the train out here especially, we need to be sure to speak into our microphone. Yeah.
Hopefully Tina can hear this all later. Sorry. Yeah, and I'm leaning back too. I'm sorry. So that's the Northwest. It's pretty much mostly just debt. 935, like Gary said, has always been the stepchild every year. It's been the small budget. Matter of fact, in most years, we weren't even required by the state to get an audit because the expenses were so low. This next year is taking a big jump because we've got the $4 million that we've put in this fund this year to do the Airport Road, Russell Drive, Porter Park, and there's some other little road, Derrick or something like that. It's kind of added into that project out over in that area. So this one took a major leap this year. It's finally doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that'll be nice. So we'll have debt service in this. But when we're all done, the year after this, when we come back, 90% of this budget would be to pay debt service. Because we looked at what's coming in and then backed off a little bit, and we issued as much debt as we could this year to get as many projects with this one bite at the apple of taking a loan. So it'll be a few years, but as we build stuff and we get more taxes, then there's a plan to do more out in the future. But for the next few years, this one will be mostly debt. And then North Gateway, that fund, most of what that budget goes to pay for is, again, debt service. We have an economic development agreement with the Samaritan Hospital. As they build more down here on their property, we're paying back infrastructure. I think it's up to $5 million. And right now, we've reimbursed them about $2 million. So we're making debt payments on that each year. Council went through this year and added Mullins Drive to it. But through that process, we also got them to lower the fixed interest rate on that to, I think it was 4.5%. Which is a lot lower than what the original plan called, and it really saves us quite a bit of money over the years. Another thing we have in here is you'll notice transfers to SDC funds. Part of our economic agreement is we will pick up and pay the SDCs on these projects also. So there's a debt of close to like a couple $1 million in SDC funds. This year, that fund has been doing so good. I'm paying back like $500,000 in SDC funds this year. We paid a bunch back this year. We're paying back a big chunk next year. Per Ron's request, we've paid back all the water, then all the sewer, because he needed those for his other projects. So we paid off all those first. So the SDCs for water and sewer are now paid back 100%. Now we're working on streets, parks, and those to pay those all back. So if this fund keeps doing this good, we'll have all the SDCs paid off in a few years too. So that'll be nice. And then they'll have money to do other projects. So those are all the ones I need to go through. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. It's a lot.
Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you. We're going to take a 15-minute break. I'd say 10, but you won't come back for 15 anyway. If I say 5, it'll be 15. So here we go. I'm just being realistic.
You say 15, we're going to be 20. The point is,